Thank you for joining us for this very special conversation in design to help celebrate the launch of Phaidon's Atlas of Interior Design, a global survey of some of the most beautiful and influential houses and apartments from the 50s through to today. The book features over 400 residential projects from around the world, arranged over 400 plus pages, with some wonderful photography and amazing graphic design by Pentagram in New York. By way of introduction, my name is Dominic Bradbury and I'm a writer and journalist. I should explain that Phaidon kindly invited me to write this extraordinary new atlas, which really was a lockdown lifesaver for me. It was a dream commission that offered me the golden opportunity at such a tricky time for us all to travel the world from my desk and explore the sheer breadth and diversity of interior design from around the four corners of the globe. Two of my favourite houses along that epic armchair journey just happen to belong to our expert guest today. Please allow me to introduce you to two of America's most original and imaginative designers, beginning with Bridget Romanek, who is originally from Chicago but now based in Los Angeles. Bridget is much respected for her residential work, including homes for Hollywood stars, but has also designed restaurants and retail stores. She lives in Laurel Canyon in Los Angeles with her film director husband, Mark Romanek, who directed the wonderful film adaptation of Kazuo Ishiguro's novel, Never Let Me Go. Mm-hmm. Thank you to Bridget, and thank you also to Jonathan Adler for being with us here today. Jonathan began his career in design as a potter, but has since turned into a polymath, designing interiors, furniture, textiles, and much more besides, as well as running his own retail empire. Jonathan lives in Manhattan and on Shelter Island with his husband, the English writer Simon Doonan, author of the memoir Beautiful People, which was turned into a wonderful BBC TV series. Bridget and Jonathan, welcome to you both.
Hi.
Hello, good to see you both. Can I just begin by asking you, starting with Bridget and then moving on to Jonathan, how you've been over the last 18 months, and presuming that you've been spending a lot more time at home than normal, like the rest of us. Yeah. How has your own house stood up to the COVID test, Bridget?
Well, I'm thankful for my house. I was thankful before, and I'm even more thankful now. I think being at home has been obviously a challenge for everybody, but it's also been this situation where we can also learn about ourselves, do some research, all types of good things, and that's a lot of what I did. Learn how to make rooms multifunctional, all types of special things sort of happen during this time and continue to happen. Dining tables as desks and offices, all types of things in my house, but all good. Even changing paint colors just due to how I want to feel in the space. So I think I weirdly, it's helped me to grow. So
great. It's past the COVID tests.
Yes.
Jonathan, yeah. I'm hoping we can talk about your amazing home on Shelter Island in particular. Have you and Simon been spending more time out there, and how's the house stood up to it?
Yeah, we decamped to Shelter Island early, and we are like two of the luckiest people alive because our place on Shelter Island is lovely and we have expansive views of nature, and I've sort of just been immersing myself in nature. There was like a bald eagle nesting outside of my house. I see seals, foxes, I see it all, and I've sort of turned into like a prairie woman during lockdown. I cook and I clean and I do laundry and I darn Simon's socks, and I just think, what the hell have I been doing living like a rat in a cage in the city for 30 years when I could have been immersing myself in nature? So that's what I've been doing. I've become very au naturel, and it's actually really been a catalyst for a lot of creativity and growth. So I like Bridget, I'm very lucky.
Yeah, that's great. And we should have just explained that you've got a great spot by the ocean. So I guess you're looking out onto the water a lot.
Right now, I'm actually trapped in my office in New York City for a minute. But I'm like, My mind is only half here because I'm like, when the hell am I getting back to Shelter Island where I belong? Simon has socks that aren't going to darn themselves.
Listen, I'll come and help you with his socks if I come and hang out with you guys there.
Please.
Well, thank you. So what we're going to do is talk a little bit more about your own houses, if that's okay. So one of the reasons that it's so good to have Bridget and Jonathan with us is not just that their homes are so inspirational, but their houses are also so very different to one another in context, setting, and style. And the Atlas is really a celebration of the diversity of contextual design of all kinds. So it's great to have these two original projects to talk about on the west and east coasts. Bridget, could I just ask you to tell us a little bit about your family home and how its history and context helped shape your approach to the design of the interiors?
Sure, absolutely. So my house the building itself is from 1929. And it was interesting when we were doing work, I started finding newspapers between the walls from like 1929 and all. It was really very, very cool. And so I'm just dealing with the house with so much history and so many incredible lives have been lived in this house. I mean, it also served as a music studio as well. So Jimi Hendrix, Beatles, Jay-Z, Radiohead, all these people recorded here in this living room that you're looking at. And so I walked into the house and immediately felt, I mean, maybe this sounds very LA, I don't know, but it was just a very soulful building in the house. And so it was really, for me, about honoring what was existing, embracing the quirks, because there are many, and not trying to change those. And when I was working or interviewing architects, I should say, one came in and was like, okay, we're going to knock this down and change this. In my heart, I couldn't take it, so I just immediately knew, you know what, I'm going to take a different approach. And so, there was molding that was falling off, and there were, I can't even tell you, stairs detached from the landing, all types of sort of craziness. And so I systematically worked to put it all back together and make it as close to the original as possible. And when you look at the windows and the leaded windows and the molding, that's all original and was here. And so the living room is rather large, and it was like this canvas, and what was I going to do? And so I didn't want to overwhelm the space with a lot, because the room just sort of speaks for itself. So every piece, I knew I wanted it just to be really intentional. I wanted where your eye landed to be someplace that was beautiful and fun and somehow serene. I wanted you to be able to have this be sort of a canvas. It just enhance your state of being. And so the chairs are comfortable. We can sit in those for hours. The pitch is just right. So it was just bringing together all of these things, making them modern, new, old, mixing it all together, and creating an eclectic, comfortable, beautiful space to be in. I love it so much. And I feel very fortunate. I get to call it home. So I'm hoping
it is so beautiful. I just am sort of mesmerized by the shell and by the furnishings and the serenity and the drama and the sculpture and the blue and white porcelain improbably placed, and the fur and the moldings and I could go on and on. It's just beautiful.
Oh my gosh, thank you. That coming from you, I'm just like, oh my gosh, that just makes me really happy. Thank you so much. Yeah, it just was such a natural, you just sort of felt it when I went in the room as to what it should be. And I wanted to anchor it, but I also wanted to let it breathe and to let it sing. And it's just such a special, special room. And so I feel very, very lucky, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Bridget. I mean, can I just ask you, I mean, it is such, as Jonathan said, such a beautiful room, and the white and the black, the sort of mid-century furniture, the blue and white. I mean, how do you begin? What's the sort of what's the starting point when you walk into an amazing space like that?
Yeah, well, that's such a good question, because when I first walked in and saw the room, I kind of, uh-oh. It was one of those moments. Okay, so where do I start here? And really, I started by the rug. I started with the rug, and I knew that I wanted to create a couple of seating areas. And so how was I going to define those? And because the room is sort of big and has such a presence, I wanted to bring it into a coziness. And so I started with the rug, and I went one piece at a time from there. You know, the coffee table has a very like 80s shape to it. It was just bringing every piece in really one at a time to make sure it made sense. And for a while, Mark, my husband, would text me and be funny and say, "Where is the couch going to be when I get home today?" So putting it all together and changing it and making sure it made sense or felt right. I'm all about the feel of a room. So,
is it important to know when to stop? Because it also feels like you haven't gone too far. You haven't sort of overloaded the space.
Yeah, it is. It's a point where, I approached it every day with fresh eyes, so I would put in what I thought was great and live with it and see if in 2 days I still felt the same way. And that's really how I curated it in the end. And it was like, oh, that takes my eye and that's too much. And so would remove that or maybe place it somewhere else. And so it was just by doing a lot of trying and memoing. He also makes a joke that when we went to Disneyland and I was in one of the stores and I picked up a stuffed animal and he's like, "Can she memo that, please?" Because I'm always wanting to, I want to try and play and use it as my canvas. And so I learned a lot, and then I just sort of knew after a while, done.
And does it still look like that?
It's changed a bit.
Quelle surprise.
It's just too much fun. It's just too much fun. But yeah, I love it. It's a good space.
Well, thank you, Bridget. Jonathan, can I just turn to you and talk about Shelter Island for a moment? I know that yourself and Simon have had a home on Shelter Island for many years, but can you tell us what you love most about the place itself and what made you decide to build a home from scratch there?
Sure. Simon, my husband, and I have been going to Shelter Island since we met 27 years ago. And it's sort of a secret little nook of the Hamptons that's a little tiny island that you have to take a ferry to get to. And it has no stoplights. It's just like nothing bad can ever happen on Shelter Island. It sort of feels like an enchanted other world where literally nothing bad can happen. Like, I can't think of anything that could possibly happen to me there. So we love it. And it's very, very much about nature. And we used to live, when we first moved there, we lived in a teeny weeny little A-frame house that was like the cheapest house on the island, as befits a window dresser and a potter. And then as we sort of, pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps and clawed our way to the middle, we sort of, you won't know what this means, Dominic, but Bridget will. We sort of Jeffersonsed it on up to a Waterfront Residence. And we saw this house that was kind of like a ratty house from the 70s, but on the most beautiful, perfect piece of land with like a view of the sea and like huge sea and a lighthouse that looks as if we conjured it. So we bought this house, knocked down the ratty old 70s house, and then built our dream house about 10 years ago. And the house, you'll see the interior, but the exterior is sort of I'd say, kind of modern, sort of a combination of sort of a little Scandinavian, a little Japanese, a little California. We worked with these architects called Gray Organsky, who are like Yale architects, and it's sort of very quiet, it's black, and we wanted a place that was small. It's like 2,200 square feet, but feels huge. It's really just a big pavilion with all glass looking out on the sea, and a courtyard, which is not something people typically do on the East Coast, but we did. And it's really about creating a home, or I hate the word home, creating a house that harmonizes with nature, that takes its cues from the landscape. So we used slate floors that sort of rhyme with the color of the sea outside, mahogany ceilings that are like the sand outside. And it's very much, I would say, a rustic, modern, groovy retreat that is kind of louche as well, which, you know, I always think that that your house should be should reflect you either at your best or as you would like to be. And Simon and I are actually the two most ascetic people you'll ever meet in your life. We're teetotalers. We're in bed by 11. We just sort of don't do anything hedonistic, but we wanted our house to be a kind of provide a slight vicarious hedonism. So it has a loungy conversation pit kind of feel. It's a canvas, like Bridget was saying, it's a canvas. This is sort of a canvas for my ever-changing things. And I think most of the things that you see in this picture are no longer there.
Oh, really?
Everything is moved. I'm like Bridget, my husband's a long-suffering husband as well. So the poor thing never knows.
Exactly. Yeah. This is fantastic. I know those pillows well. I've placed them.
Oh, nice. Thank you for your custom. Yeah, and that screen was a screen that I made out of aerated concrete. So I made the models in my pottery studio and then cast them in aerated concrete. And that porcelain lamp is like hand thrown with pebbles of porcelain, I should say, and little gold bits. So it's just ever changing. It's a canvas for my oeuvre, and it has a very crafty, hedonistic, natural vibe. Old, new, a little bit of me, a little bit of Simon. We sort of go, there's just two of us. We're very small, and we bounce around from one little seating area to the next, pretending we are hedonists.
I'm coming over. This is absolutely stunning. I love the colors too.
Standing invite, bro.
Yes, I'm on my way. The walls of glass too. It's just beautiful.
And I remember a few years ago, Jonathan, you talking about some of, you know, the things that you designed, especially for the house, like that screen you were just talking about. Was there anything else that you designed, you know, especially for the house that might have gone into a collection or, you know, generated sort of other ideas?
Yes, about a million things. You can't really see them in the photos, but like I did a lot of custom tiles for the project that have definitely informed the rest of my oeuvre. My favorite thing is a wall of tiles that were inspired by Eva Hess, the artist who had this incredible drawing of these sort of concentric circles that informed this tile collection of mine. And yeah, I'm very much inspired by places when I design. In my mind's eye, my forever muse is Jackie O. And I always imagine, like, what would Jackie O have if she were in location A or location B? So like, you know, what would Jackie O have if she lived in Capri? And this is sort of, has my house, I always imagine, like, how would Jackie O live if she had like this rustic modern hideaway? And it, of course, informs a million things I make. So it's all centered around this groovy fire pit.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Wonderful. And do you think the house, working on this house, sort of shifted your design philosophy at all in general? I mean, in general terms, did it change your life?
Well, I think it's really a fantastic and unusual opportunity to have the chance to build your own house from the ground up when you're a designer. And it's a dangerous one because you have all these fantasies and then you might do it, you might just completely screw it up. And, you know, instead of loving the sea outside, you might want to just walk into the sea with rocks in your pockets for being such a failure at designing your own house. However, I am happy to say that the vibrations are as good as I hoped they would be. So it's a very happy place for me.
That's what I was going to say. It's such a happy environment. Like you can't help but feel good as you walk in here.
Yeah, it's groovy.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you a similar question about working on your own home? I mean, do you think, I mean, designers' own houses are often called, you know, laboratories of design,
Right.
places to experiment. I mean, did working on your house help your work to evolve?
Absolutely. I mean, it continues to. I think what it makes me really lean into the idea that, you know, try anything, you know, absolutely try anything. There are no, I mean, there are so rules around design, but try anything. I'm all about the feel. You know, that's what I want to walk away with. And that's mostly what people remember. They may not remember the exact color of something, or of a piece, or of a wall, or they might not remember the exact, you know, pitch on the sofa. But what they do remember is the feeling they had in that space, you know. And that for me is really everything. And that's sort of the thing I remember and think about the most when I'm working, because I feel like, you know, I am going to leave, and it's my client's space at that point, and I want them to feel good. You know, I never want them to feel like it's just my vision and they're uncomfortable, or they're, you know, so it's just doing my own house just really taught me about try anything and make it feel good, you know, make it feel good.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you both for talking about your own houses. I just wondered if we could ask you both to pick out a couple of favorites by other designers from the Atlas itself, so we can just sort of jump around the world a little bit. And if I could start with Bridget and then move on to Jonathan. So we're hoping we can see a couple of favorites from the Atlas for each of you. So Bridget, I think we're going to start with the butterfly house, if we can. Can you tell us a little bit about this house and what you like most about it? I know Jamie Bush worked on a sort of redesign of this sort of mid-century property.
Yeah, I know Jamie, and he's such a lovely person, and it just makes so much sense that he designed this space. I mean, it's done with such care and precision, and well thought out too. You know, the vignettes and seating areas are such that, you know, you're going to have a beautiful conversation. You can turn and enjoy this view, and it also allows for, you know, Jonathan's talking so much about like nature, and there's no better designer than Mother Nature. There isn't, and it's really featured here. And your eye is just pulled, and the colors are harmonious with what's happening outside. But every piece is so directional but harmonious. I mean, I could go on, and I'm looking at this. I'm kind of laughing because it's kind of a combination of Jonathan's house and my house together.
Yes, I see that.
Right?
Yeah.
It is. It's got like such great pieces like Jonathan's, you know, like such fun and special, and some whimsy, just some seriousness. It's all of it, but it's somehow serene, and it's joyous, and every piece is communicating with the other, and you know, it still feels cozy as well. You know, this could be a house that could almost feel like, oh my gosh, you know, but he somehow made it feel homey, if that makes sense. And I like his color choices. I like the little bit of blue that sort of mimics the ocean, but everything else is sort of soft and allows you to really move comfortably around the space, you know, with your eye. And then the coffee table that very much reminds me of the one in Jonathan's house, but you know, that really anchors it and gives you a focal point. The thoughtfulness in making the rug round as well, you know, is just so pleasant and so, oh my gosh, I think this is an absolute stunner for so many reasons.
It really is masterful.
It really
is. And that location, the architecture is iconic.
It really is. It's just, and even the way the beams, the direction of the beams on the ceiling, everything is just pulling you all in and then all out. I think it's beautifully done. Really, really, really beautifully done. And every place I could lounge at all of these places, and I appreciate that. You know, I really, really, really do.
It'd be great to talk about that a little bit more, but we better jump on to the next project, which
oh my gosh,
Italy. There's a sort of film connection here. Is that right, Bridget? Sort of this is done by a film director as well.
Yes, absolutely. And weirdly, if you put these colors down and said, I'm going to do a green and a purple and all these, if you put these just on paper, someone might go, what are you talking about? What do you mean? But I mean, this is an example of this is bliss. This is just heaven. I mean, I see I'm getting excited about it. I love interior design so much, but this just makes me so happy. I mean, the height of the ceilings, the thoughtfulness on the detail on the doors. I mean, this lavender with this sort of celadony green and the gold, and then they just completely turn it on its head and give you these mid-century modern pieces of furniture. And then there's like the radiator, which is very old school, but great. And why remove that? It's just allowing and accepting and embracing what's so beautiful and unique about the space. And then the addition of plants and the greenery, I live for that, because I think that brings in not only oxygen, which is wonderful for all of us, but it just brings a level of joy and appreciation and realness. And I think this, and I'm in love with this, the plastering on with the gray. I can't get enough of this space. I feel like I could sit there and enjoy that for many, 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 many years to come. And I think the older it gets, the even cooler it'll look.
I should just explain that was Luca Guadagnino's in Italy, and he is Italian film director, but he has also become a sort of an interior designer and a designer.
Oh, okay.
Two parallel careers.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jonathan, could I just ask you to pick out a couple of favorites as well, if that's okay? I think we've got about
Well, first of all, about that last project, I think that project was an incredible sort of testament to the power also of interior photography to capture a mood. It's like the lighting was so moody, the angle was moody. It kind of just really, I felt like I was there in its idealized state. That just looked like its idealized state and angle, and it was very loose, but the plants and the colors and the the natural light, it just like had a vibe. And so I think what Bridget said before about the vibe being everything is so true.
Yeah.
But on to David Hicks, because it would be terrible to have a conversation like this sans David Hicks.
Yes.
I think this is the Grove, right? Is this?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Country style. I mean, it's just David Hicks. Like, what?
Exactly.
Right? Like, kind of formal but fun, and a little bit poppy and fancy and rich but casual. I like that this is old. It's like an old house and kind of old interior design. I just like I like the mix and the vibe, and there was only one David Hicks.
There's only one David Hicks. Just the use of color that it's breathtaking.
Right? And the use of carpet.
Yes.
And it's so funny, in in America, it's all hardwood floors. And people forget about the power of carpet.
Carpet can be fantastic.
Carpet can be fantastic. I mean, what is squishier than like wall-to-wall carpet? Yes. And England, I think you guys are much more wall-to-wall carpety than we are, even into the bathroom, which I find completely vexing, but you guys
still do that. We still do.
The two extremes, right?
It's bizarre. I don't use any of it. But like David Hicks carpets are just so fantastic, and it's those carpets of his and the modern patterns that are sort of, that he took like old kind of Celtic patterns but made them modern through scale and repetition, and then his masterful use of Louis chairs that are lacquered and made fresh. He has a lightness of touch that I always love, and a formality. And so I just kind of I think I chose this also because I had quite a bit of wanderlust during the pandemic. And I am an Anglophile, like a raging Anglophile. I had to marry a Brit, and you know, in a world in which anyone can identify as anything, I think I identify as British, even though I'm just like a Jewish kid from New Jersey. So David Hicks.
Honored to have you.
Yes, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Have time to jump to Madrid very quickly, Jonathan, just for this project by Lorenzo Castillo, who I think is an antique dealer and designer.
Yeah, he's Lorenzo Castillo is a brilliant designer in Madrid, and I went to a party at his house like probably 10 years ago and was just blown away by the panache of Lorenzo and of not to generalize, but of Spanish designers in general. I think they're sort of the unsung heroes of interior design because there's something about Spain that captures like this weird sense of eclecticism and panache and throwaway luxury, and everything's a little bit casual. They understand patina like nobody else on our planet. So shout out to Lorenzo and shout out to Spain and to plants. And that looks like a really nice place to sit back and read a Simon Doonan book.
Yes, and a shout out to you for this, because this is absolutely spectacular. I want to be there.
Right? And don't you want to, it's like not fair that in America we don't get to just sort of have gigantic marble statues.
Exactly. Who do we call about this?
I think we have to call I think we have to get a time machine.
Something needs to happen, because this is absolutely divine.
So thank you so much. I think we're going to have to wrap it up there, but thank you so much for spending some time with us. We're so grateful to you both for, you know, releasing a little bit of time from your really busy schedules. Thank you so much. All it remains for me to say is thank you to both of you for joining us. Thank you to our audience. And thank you to Focus 21 for giving us the opportunity to talk about your work and about the Atlas of Interior Design, which is now available in the UK and Europe ahead of its global release in November. You can purchase your copy from Potterton Books at the Design Centre or order online from Fiden.com. And I will also be signing copies of the book at Circa Lighting at the Design Centre this Tuesday, 21st of September, between 5 and 7 p.m. and hope to see some of you there. So thanks again, Bridget and Jonathan. It's been great spending some time with you. Thanks again and goodbye.
Later, dudes. Thank you.
Bye-bye.